had a poll, but we could only have taken calls and well, a few text messages.
Our message board is down. So
yeah. Morning, Charmaine. Charmaine also voted yes. So Charmaine actually broke the tie. So we had 11 people voting on our poll this morning, which is, are you willing to be patient? Will you be patient with the TTPS as asked by the TTPS? And 6 people said yes, 5 said no. So 6 people are willing to be patient with the TTPS. 5 people are not willing to be patient. Yeah? So that's our poll for today. And we're going to try to speak with the president of the Police Service Social and Welfare Association, Inspector Gideon Dickson, to get his views on what's been happening and in terms of the police officers that they've called out from leave. I know police officers don't like to be called out from any kind of leave. So 60 police officers have been called out from leave so that they'll be increasing the patrols in the western, northeastern, central, southern, and the Port of Spain divisions. So western, northeastern, central, southern, and Port of Spain. And eastern is not mentioned there. I guess eastern division is way up in the east. And maybe they don't have a problem up there. All right? So we're gonna be trying to get Inspector Gideon Dickson online. Richard, are you there?
yes, I am.
Okay. You could join us from time to time.
Yeah, I'm just a tad busy this morning.
That's all right. Yeah, I'm trying to do a lot of tasking here too. But
all right,
yeah,
why do you have Mr. Dickson online?
You could, of course, you could join us live on YouTube. Are we on YouTube this hour?
Yeah.
Are you streaming?
Yes.
Yes, we are streaming still on YouTube.
Recording in progress.
You can have a look.
Good morning, Gideon Dickson. How are you?
I'm not to complain much. Or you is more important.
And if you complain, nobody else listening. I know that feeling.
Yeah. You understand it clearly.
Yes. Well, good morning to you. We are fine.
Yes. Good morning, Inspector Dickson. How do you respond to the call by the Commissioner of Police, McDonald Jacob, about asking the population to be patient, the public, to bear with the police and be patient, as they have asked 60 police officers to come off leave to assist with foot patrols and so on? What is the response of the association and your personal response?
Well, most times when I respond from an association perspective. Right? In the first instance, we understand and appreciate the role of the Commissioner of Police. He's responsible for managing the resources of the TTPS, and all officers, whether on leave or not, at his discretion. Our concern will be the health and wellness of our officers and how it impacts upon their personal work-life balance, and also how it impacts upon their health and how it impacts upon the delivery of service to the members of the public. So yes, we also witness the call out. I am aware of the patrol model that the Commissioner referred to, so he's following through with that. And the officers who are targeted right now are persons who normally would perform those duties on the ground level. The 60 officers referred to are constables and also corporals. That being said, we understand that there are 5 areas tremendously affected, and we also understand that the police have been going over and beyond for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is somewhat stretching to think that our leave have been restricted since December 2019, and it was only given back to the officers within the last 3 or 4 months, right? So we get back a level of normalcy within the last 3 or 4 months. But to go again to restrict the leave of the officers. I think that we will be having that engagement with the Commissioner of Police because we feel that there are other ways to get the same result, right? So that I just came up with the former Commissioner of Police. I could tell you that the meeting will take place, if not by the end of today, tomorrow at latest. So we would be in a better position to speak on the matter.
So it's not a fait accompli then that this leave, this proposal to bring officers off a leave will be achieved.
No, well, the 60 officers that we are certain that will be achieved because again, officers have taken full responsibility for what is happening in the communities, right? And even with the officers taking full responsibility, the officers who are on leave would have when they leave and they believe that at this time they could come back out and give a contribution. We have no issues with that. We are also saying that crime isn't one where you singularly put everything on the police, because the police is part of this entire network. You have the criminal justice system, you have the community, you have the penal system. We have everything that operates that should be able to suppress crime or at least have it under a manageable state, and you have the government have the part to play. For us, the police, it is we have been operating under extenuating circumstances. The average person have not been exposed to what we have been exposed over that 3-year period. We have witnessed where at least 3 elections, so the leave was restricted. You had 1 carnival, you had a state of emergency for a 6 months period, you had a regulation changing over 78 times, you had a destabilization of the country. We have lost 38 officers to date. No other industry, no other agency have lost so much in the period that we have lost. And we would have done it and still try to keep crime as manageable as we could, but also fight our invisible enemy. These things are things that, when pegged with everyone else in a salary negotiation, we, the police, cannot be satisfied that we are being treated as essential, because every time something goes wrong in this country, the first call is the police.
I hear you, Inspector. I hear you.
Let me go further. I want to add this too. Additionally, as servants of the state, when we execute our duties, we have no issues while operating within the parameters of the law. But there is legislation which speaks to, if something should go wrong, there should be a coroner's inquest in relation to matters. We have not witnessed not one of those occurring within the last 3 years. And we are saying that it is unfair to the police, because if a doctor in his prognosis to his patient something goes wrong, there is mechanisms in place. These persons are not going behind the state prisons. We have officers operating now like we have handcuffs on our back. So it is becoming more and more demotivating to operate the police in this present time.
So I mean, I understand you, Inspector, and I agree with the part that the police is at the end of the line in terms of all these guns and so on, because we have customs, we have the Coast Guard, we have the TTDF, we have all these other arms of the state where these things are passing before it gets to these individuals and shows up on the streets, where the police are now asked to deal with it. I agree with that. But again, it's the nature of the job. The police at the end of the day have taken that oath of office to protect and serve us with pride. And are you satisfied that that is being done effectively?
Well, I would want to publicly commend my officers on it, because again, it isn't you, Mr. Moderator, you as an average citizen, you have taken an oath to be a law-abiding citizen, and your employers would treat you according to your bargaining agreement, right? We have also taken the same oath. We are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Our officers, in taking the oath, have stood and withstood all that has been thrown at us. Let me just look at the last 3 years. We have withstood all, and we have also investigated even our own, and we have investigated these criminals, and we have thousands of persons before the court. So, by and large, we have been doing what we have to do. We have also gone into other realms because we had to be the agents who have to protect the people from an invisible enemy. Whilst you have the persons who were trained and prepared for those things, like the nurses, the doctors, and all this, they sat back and wait for us to bring the evidence to them. So the police, our work have evolved tremendously since our last job evaluation exercise. Whilst the average citizen, your job, their job, remain the same. And then
I don't agree with that, because we still have to take.
Tell me what.
Well, I'm sure the people in the Ministry of Health will say the same, that their job has been increased tremendously over the last 3 years due to the pandemic. The media people can also claim the same too, because they now have to report and investigate a lot more. So a lot of people have been doing.
How many of them have died?
Quite a bit.
How many of them have died as a result of the pandemic?
Mr. Health professionals?
Quite a bit have died.
No, I want data. I'm telling you that we have lost 38 officers. There's no agency in Trinidad and Tobago or in the Western Caribbean or even Latin America have lost so much per capita in terms of their human resource. And we continue to do it under extenuating circumstances, and the officers have not relented in terms of fighting crime and making the fact be known that we have to maintain law and order. We can march. Look, the 4% that has been rejected by everybody else. Our officers feeling that strain too, but we have to go and stand up our wrong persons and protect them while they peacefully care about their business.
Mr. Dickson, good morning. You mentioned that officers, and you're right, officers are operating under extreme circumstances in the last 2.5 years. In addition to dealing with COVID and the lockdowns and the increase in crime, has the association been lobbying for more psychological intervention and treatment of officers who are under this kind of stress?
That is an excellent question, and I could say of the bat we have, to the extent that it appears in our strategic goal of 2022 into 2024. It is now one of the pillars of the TTPS, where health and wellness is now the 5th pillar by which the organization operates. That has been because of advocacy and lobbying by the association. We have also ensured that our victim support unit has evolved its modus of operation to ensure that officers get intervention in a timely manner. We have also the social work unit, whereas before there was a
percentage of officers, or how many officers are availing themselves of these services?
Could you repeat the question?
What percentage of officers, or how many officers, to your knowledge, have availed or are availing themselves of these intervention services?
I don't have that ready detail, but with one phone call, I can get that information from.
I'm asking in the context of you have rightly said officers are under significant duress, and if in any circumstance, if persons are under psychological, emotional stress as the officers are, it may be impacting their efficiency and their operations. Do you think it is a significant effect in terms of the way they operate?
Well, is that another excellent question? We are placed in a situation where you have to make life and death decisions in a split second, and everyone else will come and analyze both from whatever evidence they get on the outside or whatever information. Our officers, when you look by and large based on our performance, we have done tremendous. So that is very commendable. In terms of whether we are able to continue with this level of strain placed on us, is only so much our one could take. The authorities now, you have to also appreciate that we work under the circumstances. Our work environment is not the best. We don't come out and make public placards in terms of when things are not right, we try to address the situation internally. And
what are some of the situations you're facing?
Yes. I didn't hear you. So what
are some of the internal situations that you don't think are optimal that you're facing, your officers are facing?
Right. Okay. So for instance, there's an issue with respect to furnitures as we speak. So the officers might be required to work a 24-hour period. And now the average person, the normal person, cannot work 24 hours without blinking an eye. And there is a need for the person to rest, reboot, to go again within a 24 hours because their body don't lock off. Actually, it is all right, but they need to rest. We have issues where mattresses are concerned, issues where chairs are concerned. I will not go into other details in terms of national security, the things that impact upon us. Most of our buildings now are fully air-conditioned, and the air-conditioned units are down. So therefore, if the air-conditioned units are down, it simply means then the ventilation issue becomes an issue. The vehicle becomes an issue when members of the public come to get that ready access in terms of police to move. That is an issue. We have 1,200 officers short. That is an issue. All these things are issues when compounded together continues to add stress on the officers. Additionally, we still on a 2013 salary.
Why do you see your 1,200 officers short?
I didn't hear you.
Why do you see your 1,200 officers short?
Right. I'm saying based on the established strength of the organization of 7,448, the record would show that we have in and around 6,200 to 6,400 officers under the TTPS strength. That in itself signifies 1,200 officers short. Right? So is the established strength coupled with what you have working, those who needed to get the leave, those who have emergencies that have to take. So you always operating on a strength that it is not the ideal strength, but you make do with what you have. And additionally, we have attrition taking place. With attrition taking place, it simply means as those on the top leave, the strength of the organization continues to wane. It continues to weaken. And
I want to talk to this stress issue for a while, and there have been a couple of high-profile, high-tension situations where officers, the one recently on Independence Square, where officers were involved in the deaths. I'm not casting innocence again, and the investigations are going. 3 persons. There was the one in Mova that's an investigation. Do you think that officers are clear? Is there a clear use of force policy that officers understand and are applying?
I think that, let me publicly say, I don't want to comment too much on matters that are before the court. And
that's why I asked the question in a general sense.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. I also want to say that our use of force policy have worked for us, right? It is a best practice that have worked for us. What have not worked for us is the authorities doing what the authority is supposed to do. So there is no protection for police officers at this point in time, or at least that is how it appears. When last have you, Mr. Richards, heard of a coroner's inquest where police shooting takes place? We are now, that protection that is afforded by way of the law, somehow it has been eroded. And we are saying that it puts the officers who continue to work under extenuating circumstances in a place where we are working almost like with handcuffs on our back.
Well, Mr. Dickson, explain how would a coroner's inquest work different to what is taking place now, where the different arms of the state do the investigations, the TTPS, the PCA, the PSB. How would a coroner's inquest make a difference? Because though a lot of these cases, all right, let's say in the case of PC Jilks was killed on that exercise, where on a top.
Remember, we don't want to go too much into.
All right, so we're not going into the details.
What I want to say is this, right?
How would a coroner's inquest work differently than what's happening?
Right. So a coroner's inquest will be an inquiry to determine the facts surrounding or whether it was justifiable in the fatality that came out. So it will take every single thing into consideration, and not necessarily the symptomatics or what you would have seen as the end product. It takes every single thing into consideration. Therein is where the evidence will come out that precedes the offense which would have occurred, that takes the level of aggression, the level of use of force used, the follow-up, that everything would come out. And coupled with that, the officers will not be behind bars. Listen, the officers will not be behind bars whilst this is taking place. We have officers that are behind bars, and you know, if it is a civilian, a law-abiding civilian who is a FUL holder, is engaged by the criminal element and something occurs, whilst the inquiries take place to determine whether sufficient force was used, that person is not behind the bars. Right now, we have several officers whose life and their family life have been impacted significantly, and we are saying that even as a country we evolve, and now we're seeing that for murder there is bail for murder. We also want to make a clarion call from an association perspective that the person that should be considered are those who were in the execution of the duty, not someone who was not a police officer who was sitting home and he followed the neighbor, he just go and pick up a gun and go and shoot. No. An officer, whilst operating, got a phone call, a wireless call transmission, had to respond with a level that was equitable to the threat outside there, and in a split second, under all these 3 years circumstance of no leave and everything, and working 24 hours, take everything into consideration.
Mr. Dickson, you won't get any argument from media, because I remember when this matter came up, I was a bit surprised at the charges that were leveled. I said that publicly. I was surprised that the charge was murder, right? So I'm hearing you on that matter, and your association probably needs to make your case heard, and you know, in a more strident way.
Yeah, and I agree. We take that as constructive criticism, and we will make it be heard in a more strident way, because at the end of the day, you cannot speak to the level of essentialness that you require of the TPS, and every single fall out of the society, we are called upon to treat with it. And our last job evaluation exercise would have been 20 years ago. We have had, from since that time to now, at least 15 new units had to be developed just to be able to stay relevant with crime trends, because crime is one thing that is similar to change. It does not stop changing. So we have had child protection unit, we have had cyber crime, we have in unit, we have had CCTV, every single thing that needs to be done to be able to stay abreast of topical matters that relate to crime evolution. And that is when I make the argument that the nurses in the hospital, or the clerical staff at the Ministry of Public Utilities, or whatever the case is, their job hasn't changed. Their job remains the same. So when you take what happened with police, you have to take it in its totality. And you cannot treat us as everybody else. It is unfair.
Mr. Dickson, you're a senior police officer, right? You've been around a while.
And a career one at it too.
Right. And you've been heading this association, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. What would you do differently?
Just the last 3 years and months.
Right. So based on all the proposals you see coming out from your current acting commissioner, what would you do different? If you had a chance to be the head of the TTPS at this point in time, what would you do differently? Or what would you do?
Right. No, that's a loaded question. And I would want to...
Straightforward.
You might say straightforward. I want to say this in the first instance. The association stands ready and is in support of the Top Cup of Trinidad and Tobago, and whoever sits as the Top Cup of Trinidad and Tobago, because we understand their role is to come up with policies that will impact upon not just the internal members of the TTPS, but by extension all stakeholders and the public, to bring about a level of safety and security. So the association would do that. I, as a career officer, also believe that when crime and criminality seems to be spiraling out of control, there is probably more that individual officers could do. There's more that we probably could do as a collective. But I'm also saying that it cannot just be the police alone, because the agencies, most of the fallout that is occurring in society, it didn't start when these persons turn adulthood. It starts right in the community and right in the schools.
Yeah, but Mr. Dickson, you're deflecting from a question.
Because
I'm asking it personally.
What would you have done differently?
What would Gideon Dickson do if he had the chance to do something? I sit in a place. Let me give you my experience, right? Because you may know me. I'm sure you do. I sit in a place that I don't always agree with the person who is head. I sit at the city council level, and I don't always agree with the mayor. And I tell him, and I openly say, listen, I don't agree with that strategy. Let's do something else. He may either continue with it or he may change. He may agree with me. So what would Gideon Dickson do?
Right. So Gideon Dickson, as a career officer, believe that Gideon Dickson will continue to make sure that each officer is accountable. Each officer do what they have to do in the context that we do it from a networking perspective. And it is through strategic alliance with all the stakeholders we can get this thing done. So from that perspective, I was saying,
would Gideon Dickson have called out 60 officers from leave?
If it was necessary, I would do it. So I am not questioning that decision by the Commissioner of Police. And it is 60 officers who are accustomed to it. And if those 60 officers, they believe that they want to sell their leave or they want to come and I have no issues with a person doing what they believe they need to do. I am also saying that how I operate from a problem-oriented perspective in terms of troubleshooting and coming up with solutions. If there's an issue, for every issue, there is a solution. So I look at getting solutions. So at this juncture, Gideon Dickson will look at where we have the areas affected the most, and I would redeploy resources to have those areas dealt with, so that at that point in time, we treated it with the surface level, but we also having a multiple approach wherein we having a softer touch coming in to breed out the young people in the community who seemingly have no sense of patriotism, have no sense of direction. They need role models. We need to have mentors coming. It is a holistic approach to solving crime. It cannot be a one-dimensional.
All right. Steve, are we allowed to take calls from Mr. Dickson? So we can, Mr. Dickson, you don't mind taking.
Mr. Dickson, we take a couple of your calls. We'll take a couple of calls from our listeners. So they may have a question or two that we have not asked. 222-8255.
I think you'll ask everything.
I may have missed. Richard is off, busy, and Paul is also a little busy this morning, and I alone can't talk to you. You know, so but let's hear from a couple of our people now who might be listening and want to ask a question of the head of the police service social. So you say you'll be meeting with the commissioner today concerning this call out, right?
We will be meeting the commissioner between later this afternoon and tomorrow, please God. We just had a conversation there. We'll finalize the time.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Well, I mean, whilst we're waiting on calls, if you have anything else you want to add from a TTPS perspective, we can hear you.
Right.
Let me ask this: the issue of, are you at all concerned about the issue of people using allegedly fake police uniforms to carry out a lot of these killings?
That is of grave concern to us likewise, because there is the perception, and there is also the cultural practice that the police officers are the persons you see as the law and order, and you identify them with their uniform. Now, within recent times, I don't want to put my head in the sand. Our modus of operandi in terms of how we conduct ourselves in our uniform has come into public ridicule and has come into a spectacle. Those things we have to address through our disciplinary process, and soon to be established the grievance process, which should be rolling out pretty soon. We will treat with those things, but by and large, when a person puts, I have come from a school where your uniform is supposed to speak for you. So even before a member of the public or even your own colleague hear you, they should be able to say what kind of police you are just on your turn out and appearance, and it's kept in our standing orders. And we need to revisit it from the perspective that we want all officers to hold close and firm to that. You need to be looking at a particular part. You need to conduct yourself in that particular part. You need to carry a uniform that way. I think it is a step in the right direction. So when members of the public would have put on a police uniform and commit a crime, that in itself, we believe, apart from it being a criminal offense they would have committed, it is a slap. It is a slap in our face, because only a few are chosen. And being a chosen officer, to wear that uniform, you should wear it with a level of pride and professionalism.
All right. We do have a call, Gideon. So good morning to you, caller.
Hi, morning.
Morning.
Sunny San Fernando here.
Yes, Sonny.
Yeah, Wendell, like you too, I drive around and early and during the course of the day, and you would see marked police vehicles at the side of the road, but no one is outside of the vehicle. So it makes you wonder if the car or SUV is empty and there's nobody. Now, I hear the passion in the officer's voice, and I want to thank him for his service. But I think they need to take a page out of the prison service welfare thing and publicly just say that they would not, like how they say they would not defend or condone rogue behavior amongst officers. I think we need to hear that a little more. The only other thing I want to point out, it must be very disheartening to be a police officer, because I read papers daily, and you're seeing people getting bail who have 6 previous convictions and on 17 charges. And a couple of years ago, a guy beat a woman in Pleasantville and stole her phone and thing, and he had 27 previous convictions and still got bail, $80,000 bail, which is 10% of $80,000. That's like no money. Mm-hmm. So it must be disheartening to be a police officer, because you're going out there, you're catching the criminal, and even with previous convictions and pending charges, they're still getting bail. Which, how is that possible? Mm-hmm. And you read it every day. Up to yesterday, there was one with 17 pending charges. So this one will make it 18, and 6 previous convictions, and he still got bail, $50,000 or something like that, which is $5,000 to give the bail.
Yeah, well, Mr. Dickson,
that is madness.
He did raise that. Yeah, he did raise that. Mr. Dickson, I pointed out this morning.
Thank you, Sonny.
Yeah,
we have another call, gentlemen. Good morning.
Let's take the call.
Good morning, Steve. This is Linda. So,
hi, Linda from across the pond. Good morning to you.
Linda from across the pond in London. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm listening to Mr. Dickson and agree with some of the things that he's saying. And I also heard our darling Zena, I think it was yesterday, say that with regards to crime, you can't have a police for every person. And parents need to assume responsibility for the crime situation in some part. And I fully agree, and I want to illustrate a great example. Now, right now, I am looking at the LinkedIn, which is, for those under a rock, is a professional social network. People upload their CVs and contact other professionals and employers, etc. So the profile I am looking at is that of a youngish, university-educated male from Trinidad. His profile picture, which I assume projects his professional status, shows him in casual clothing, a t-shirt, and he's proudly holding an automatic weapon. As one of the hundreds of people who lost a loved one to gun violence in Trinidad in 2022, I find this profile picture highly insensitive. You know, Mr. Dickson just said, your uniform's supposed to speak for you. I think it's terribly irresponsible. That profile picture belongs to Adrian Schoon, Managing Director at Harbour Tours Limited. Why have his mother and his uncles in the cabinet not had a word with him about that offensive profile picture? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Last I checked, Adrian Schoon is a grown man. I don't know how his mother or anybody in the cabinet would have to do with his profile picture. I didn't. Was that a question, Mr. Dickson? Is that something you'll be? I thought she was calling to address something with you, but is that something you would be concerned about?
I would the caller before. I just would want to say something as related to what the caller before spoke to.
Like Sonny said.
And we, the association, outrightly rejects rogue officers or alleged rogue officers being in the organization, because it compromises the great body of law-abiding officers, and we openly and we have said so. But in the same breath, we are also mindful that everyone has something. They are entitled to the protection afforded to them. They are innocent until proven guilty. We have hundreds of officers that have gone before the court over the last 10 years for alleged misbehavior in public office. So it shows that the organization is prepared to cleanse its own self. So to the caller who would have made the statement that there isn't a call by us similar to that of the prisons, the prison service, I would want to just correct that. Really, we, the association, outrightly reject having rogue officers. However, there is a process to determine rogue officer, and we have been, as an organization, operating to weed such persons out and take them before the correct place. And even those who are in the prison service, we have been doing that with those persons to assist our colleagues in the prisons to weed out rogue officers. Right? As it relates to the persons who he would see a vehicle park up on the side of the highway and other places, and he might know if an officer is in or outside the vehicle, they should be told the presence of the police vehicle acts as a deterrent in terms of persons exercising speed on the nation's highway, but it also, the officers there from time to time get out to engage members of the public, and also would be participating in stop and search exercises. Those things are all in keeping with best practice in policing. If it appears to be a concern and significant enough, I myself will have it raised with the Commissioner of Police so that the members of the public will feel a lot more satisfied with the fact that the police vehicle is there. And if they want to see more officers, it is difficult. And as the young lady just mentioned, we can't have a police by every corner. And at some stage, members of the public have to also start to police oneself. And in policing oneself, it simply means you don't have to go out and engage anyone. We have significant amount of anonymous numbers you can call. We are encouraging communities to do what you would call target hardening by creating neighborhood watch groups and forming WhatsApp group with your members so that persons could be looking out and contacting the district police for them to appear within a timely manner to engage those who you feel would be criminals coming to weaken your community. We have all these things in place. We have we have town meetings. This is all of us approach, and it is difficult to be a police in chief because we are often given all the blame for the fallouts. So when the school system breaks down, they call on the police. When the community breaks down, they call on the police. When there's eruption in parliament, they call on the police. Every single thing is the police.
Well, they say after God. Mr. Dickson, are you confident that the TTPS can reverse this crime splurge that we are seeing happening in Trinidad and Tobago? Are you confident?
I am confident that we are onwards to better days coming, but it cannot be just the TTPS alone. I am confident that if the stakeholders honor their role and their responsibility, we as a country could get back to our glory days where safety and security was not just said to be of paramount importance, but would have been demonstrated in the behavior of our people and in the behavior of the institutions that have, because there has been a total breakdown. And let us not put our head in the sand. There has been a total breakdown in all the fabrics of our lovely Twin Island state.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, Gideon, let me just ask you, this week alone, and I just want your thoughts on it. There was a shooting in Mova where regiment bullet casings were found. There has been another murder in San Juan this week, and we're only on Wednesday, with 20 shells from the allegedly TT air guard was found. What are your thoughts on that, and how was that possible?
Well, I don't have the facts on that, to be quite honest.
But when you hear something like that, what do you think?
When I hear something like that, it is of grave concern to us because, again, the death of one is a death too many. I just recently traveled to Grenada there, and I was very impressed with how the people of Grenada truly operated from a hospitable perspective, from a communal perspective. We as a people have veered far away from where we were once upon a time. How could we find a formula to get it back? That is still being deliberated by the jury, but it starts with each individual and each community. Each individual and each community. We have to try to win back the individuals and the community, and we must have programs that will tap into wanting to make people more industrious. Right? I come from Movalab. I born and grew in Movalab until. So I know it has been widely acclaimed of the ills associated with Movalab until, but I see myself as a beacon, and there are several hundred thousands of others like myself. What is lacking to me from where I am is persons who would have made it out being able to go back into these communities as role models to save the next generation. We have to find some mentorship program that will impact in such a way. And we cannot leave it to any one entity that only deals with decays and is falling out. Our social network and the need to start to work. We need to have sporting activities because we have put Trinidad and Tobago on the global map. We need to have cultural activities. We need to have put us in the global map. We need to have a strategic alliance, a clear picture as to where we are, where we came from, and where we want to go, and look at what worked for us.
Right.
These things need to be done.
Gideon Dickson, I want to thank you so much for being on the Power Breakfast Show this morning.
I was
Recording
tempted
stopped.
to ask you, Mr. Dickson, if you want the harbor master in Grenada, but maybe not.
Actually, I was.
You were?
I was.
You witnessed the fracas?
From a distance.
Okay, well, look at that. Grenada, it's the world smaller.
Yeah, the world is small. 6 degrees of separation.
All right, we get into that. Thanks so much, Gideon Dickson, for being on the Power Breakfast Show.
Okay, no problem.
All the best. Thank you. All right, let's get into our news brief. All courtesy Sean Florida Services.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.